like a few of you have requested of me, I'm going to be going over which figures I think are the best ones in the game, and why. And I think these ones that I'm about to go over are the ones you should use. You can use anything you feel like, and you can tell me whether or not I'm right or wrong, or if I missed anything, or if you feel like a figure that I'm putting higher up compared to the rest, you can tell me that I'm wrong. And, you know, I just appreciate why, and I'm completely fine with that. I know I'm not going to have the same view and or opinions on all these figures. So if you feel like I messed up on something, or you're like, well, wait, what about this figure? Feel free to let me know down below. But a lot of people have been asking me what, in my opinion, are the best figures in the game that you should be using. So we're going to get into that. So the first batch of figures, not a terrible batch to start out with. I would say the only one worth using, still to this day though, is the Piccolo figure. Particularly the one with more HP. Because yes, while the other one has impressive defense, his HP stat isn't all there, and his attack is just innately lower. Even when factoring in, you know, dupes. So, if you want the, what I consider to be the better Piccolo, use number 45. Some of you could make a case for Kid Buu, and I can agree to an extent. I personally think, though, that there are better figures that outclass him, ones that we'll be getting to later on. Beerus used to be good when Hero Colosseum first came out, and then he pretty much just fell off the face of the earth since Update 2 came out, because there were just better options. And the options that are better than him might not necessarily have started with Batch 2. I'm saying it like started with Batch 2, because Batch 2 is when up second teams started to become very prominent. And like I said, you can make a case for quite a few of these guys. I'm not saying Beerus is a bad figure. I think he really needs a new UR, though, to keep up with the game's current state. In fact, you could say that for a lot of these characters. Still not bad. I would say, if you feel the need to, use Whis. I just think his sister Vados is so much better. Don't bother with Goku Black. I've seen what Super Saiyan 2 Goku can do over on Robo's channel, but I personally wouldn't consider him God tier. Same with Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, don't bother. This right here is definitely a God tier figure, though. If you're looking for a solid 01 unit, he has speed, he has a really great attack, he has a lot of utility in his defense to your master, and, get this, you don't even have to use him as an 01 figure. Your master's going to get that minus 30% damage taken to them, whether or not he has other people with him on the field. So you could even do that. You don't have to use him as an 01 unit. Very flexible, very God tier. Look at this. UR Cell used to be really good when he first came out, not so much anymore. This is still a very much God tier figure. Gohan, I think there are better options now personally, but he's still up there. Very much up there. So if you're looking for a solid 01 unit, use figure in 138, the speedier version. Make sure to keep him safe, don't let anything happen to him, of course. 17's really good for his 144 variant, but if you're going to use either, you're going to have to keep him safe. Otherwise, not bad at all, because he subtracts 1,000 attack to one random opponent on the field. That to me is huge. I would say you can make a case for 17. But I still think there are better options even than him, which, again, I'll get into later. 18, not much to say on her, other than she decreases the opponent's speed. Again, though, it's one random opponent, and it's by 1,000. If you're trying to go second, there's no point in using her, else if you're trying to go first, I still think you have better options available. Because looking at both versions, the only really quick one is the second variant, but she's going to get blown back by anything that so much as breathes on her. However, she does have a spot behind Vados. But really, you want to use Vados on second team, so that kind of shoots itself in the foot as well. Like I said, though, I think the better option. Speaking of better options, the bikini version of 18. Now, I personally like using this version of 18 for the bikini because look at all that health she has. And then I have her duped entirely into attack. That's a very great attack stat to have when trying to go second. Her speed is low enough. Yeah, it's a bit on the higher side, 2130. But still, that like the deck I have, you can easily make up for that with, instant example, Toa. Don't worry, we'll get into her later. She's going to be like later down the list. I would say that the non-EX limit broken version of 16, not great. If you're going to use him though, use the EX limit one, and even then, I'm not too sure right now whether or not he's God tier, but I will say, having a figure that makes the opponent, no matter what, focus him and only him, very useful to have. So I would say don't sleep on him. I think only time's going to tell whether or not he's great. So far, I have high hopes for him. Hit, a lot of you are going to disagree with me on this. I don't think he's God tier, personally. Do I think he has the potential to be? Absolutely. But here's my problem with him. Both of his spots are up in the front, and with how hard a lot of the figures are hitting nowadays, he's only going to be around for 1-2 turn tops if you're lucky. He doesn't have the highest defense on either version, and, you know, actually the 1960 is not bad, but he's way too quick if you're trying to go second with him, and the issue with this one is if you're trying to go second with him, which I don't know why you would be, you want to break your opponent's defense first and then hit first. That's the whole point of using him, in my opinion, anyway. Really great attack stat when duped fully, 10 out of 10, but then his defense, of course, suffers. Not bad HP, I will say that, but then he doesn't have very good speed. You shouldn't be using hit unless you're trying to go first, in my opinion. But again, this is all my opinion, and you're probably going to disagree with a few of the ones I have and my reasoning behind them. That's okay. Just tell me why below, and we'll just have a civil discussion about it. No big deal. Both versions of Champa, I would say, are God tier. One has a lot of HP and attack. The other one has more attack with more speed. So I would say either version is going to serve you really well. The only thing I would say you need to watch out for is on the higher HP version, not a whole lot of defense, and obviously not as much attack, but you're still going to be providing your team with that very useful trigger square of his, where you boost the damage for his entire side by 30% for that turn. That's a very great thing to have. And then Vados, who needs no introduction. In my opinion, if you're going to use either of them, just use 179 and dupe her entirely in HP. Because look at her defense stat, even with all dupes into HP. That's ridiculous. And her attack stat, while not the greatest, you can easily make up for with things like attack up second 2, like I have here. And 2 turns of that, it's already doing the same amount of the regular attack up second. And after that, it becomes even better, exponentially. You can use the other Vados, but if you're trying to go first and have her last at the same time, I don't see the point. You really should be using the first one in an up second deck, in my opinion. Rose Goku Black, I think, is kind of fallen off. Still not bad. You can definitely make them work, but your opponent has to put figures in their upper middle and their upper right to get them to work. They can easily play around that, so that's kind of a problem. I don't think the first Yorizamatsu is worth using at all. Wouldn't bother. Let's see, Blue Vegeta, I would say still viable, but not ideal. Goku, I would say both versions are still very solid. I'm gonna put him in God tier, just because he has really great support, and he has 2 great versions to pick from. He's got one with base stats, 60-20, 70-10 in attack, 1000 defense. Not bad, probably not needed, but nice to have anyway. You can even make yourself a version that has, oh crap, that's something I actually forgot to do. Something you can do is you can have a version of 203 with all dupes put into speed. And then you have a very quick figure that not only hits hard, but he's buffing his allies up as well. Very solid. Definitely consider using him. Next up we have the original Super Saiyan 4 Goku, still very much God tier. And I would say specifically the first version, because you are not only making yourself stronger, you are making the enemy weaker as the game progresses. And if you put a second 2 skills on him, like defensive second 2, look at his defense stat, combine it with this, Vados, and either Piccolo or the most recent final form UR Frieza we have, and you have a really ridiculous unkillable unit on your hands. And to add insult to injury, you can put on 80 amount of second 2 and things like FHP Cure, FHP 50L. He's going to be around for a very long time. Don't bother with this UR figure, period. Probably the worst UR figure in the game to this day. Not a bad figure for Super Saiyan 2 Gohan. I don't think he's God tier personally, though. We're going to skip over him. Skip over the rest of these Brolys. Gotenks is still very solid. You can use either version of him, and I would still say he's considered God tier because of the boost that he's giving himself. And even when he falls below 50% HP, he's still very useful. And look at his base HP stat on 259. That's a ridiculous base HP stat to have. On top of having very decent speed, I would say you're going to have to dupe him entirely into attack. Otherwise, what's the point? And then his other version, which I think is slightly better, especially if you're trying to go first, that's definitely an option. You can do that as well. Let's see, we have Vegeta, who's still viable. You can still use him if you want. I'm personally not using him anymore at all. And then the second version of Super Vegeta, still a God tier figure, a must-have on your team. In terms of support, I would say Bardock, base Bardock, is close to being God tier, but not quite. I just think there are better options that we'll get into later. Don't use this Omega Shenron, because you're just shooting yourself in the foot. Because look at what he does. Place on a trigger square for plus 1500 to own attack, yet you are decreasing 300 attack to all of his allies on the field, and he only has one spot in the upper middle. What's the point? Here we have another very close case of being God tier. I personally do not think so. And that is figure 281 and 282 for the second Blue Goku. Although you can make an argument for him, you could put him on there in his upper middle trigger square with Whis and Vados on the field. Hell, you can even put him on there with Vados and NZ Goku. And that would work, but I personally think you're a lot better off just using Focus Flash Vegeta and putting him behind, well, Vados, and then put him on the field also with Super Saiyan 4 Goku, the first one. The speed version is not bad either, but you're going to get the most out of up-second teams. I'm going to say that right now. Up-second teams in this game are so dominant, it's ridiculous. Plus, if you have Toa, which in my opinion is a must-have, especially if you're playing online and player versus player, if you have an opponent that has harder-hitting figures than you with lower speed, which is very often, mind you, it's also very often to run into Toa. So the best way to counter that is to have one of your own. But, like I said, we'll get into it when we get to our... let's see, Videl. Use the first version of Videl, don't use the second one, because otherwise it's just a waste on your team, in my opinion. You need to use the first version. Because look at her base speed, and on top of that, the trigger square actually doesn't decrease all opponents' defense and speed by 70%. It's more like 30 or 35. And that's not the only place that they made a typo on. That stuff's all over, but if I were sitting here trying to point out where all those are, we'd be here for quite a while, so I'm not going to bother. 17 isn't bad. DBS Super 17. I think you're better off, though, using NZ Goku. And again, don't worry, we'll get to him. Either version of UI Goku, the first one, is broken as hell. Definitely use him. Dupes or not, he's ridiculous. He's one of the best in the game. And then here we have a very good O1 unit in Jiren, and just really good in general. I would say that, much like UI Goku, I'd put him just about at God tier, almost. Not quite, but almost. And that's just because I think there are better options. Like the Trunks I went over earlier, I personally think he's better. Even though, again, you can make a case for Jiren, where he gives 50... So, one great thing I will give him is he gets your ultimate attack gauge 15%, and that's repeatable. That's awesome. I'll agree there. I think he also gives defense to the Master. If on the field, 1.1 times the own attack and defense, and plus 2,000 defense to your Master. You could make a case for him. You know what, I'm going to go ahead and say he's God tier. Not bad. Not the greatest either. I would say he's lower God tier, personally. The second Super Saiyan 4 Goku wasn't bad either. You can make a case for him. I would say he's viable. I would say don't sleep on this version of Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta either, because I've seen what he can do over on Robo's channel, and it's great. My only issue is he doesn't have enough defense and HP for him to last longer. If he had all of his speed, pretty much, and a little bit less attack, put that into his HP and defense instead, I think it'd be really solid. And God tier at that point, but as it stands, no. Either version of the first Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, they're both God tier. They're ridiculous. Use either of them. And heck, you can even use either or as an L1 unit if you want to. And then we have the most infuriating figure in the entire game, being Towa. Let me just go over the version I have in my deck. So, I have her duped entirely into attack, and the reason for that is because I'm not always going to want to use her solely to use an ultimate on my opponent. And even then, I'm usually only going to have her on the field once, just to use her, her ultimate attack. It's only going to do a base of 100, and you could argue, well, why don't you just put the rest of the dupes in defense and HP? Well, here's the thing. She's only really going to be on the field once most of the time anyway. Plus, if I'm going to keep her around even after that, where she uses her ultimate, I'd rather have more points in attack at that point. Plus, I have defense up second on her anyway, which is going to more than help her. She already has a base of 1960 defense, and just look at her trigger square. It's very game-breaking. And there is only one figure I've noticed in the game that completely counters her, and we'll be getting into him later. And for that reason, I'm going to say he's God tier. I think some of you already might know who that is, though. We got him in DLC 13, thank God. A lot of people have been asking for an answer to Towa, and now they finally have one. The only issue, of course, is getting one yourself and maxing them out. But look at her trigger square. It's so broken, to the point that they had to put him in just to make her less viable. So, not only is she getting 500 speed to herself each turn, but she's swapping the attack and speed values of a random opponent on the field. There are so many figures in this game that have a much higher attack stat than they do speed. You could probably guess why she's a problem, and then look at what her ultimate attack does. It restores 50% of both her allies and master HP. You greatly reduce the ultimate attack damage though, you know, when doing that, but when you're saying screw you to your opponent and making it as if none of their damage mattered at all, I think that trades off significantly. In fact, you've already seen what I consider to be the most broken deck in the entire game, as it stands, even with that new figure introduced. Because you're still making him have to deal with the rest of the team centered around Towa. But I spent way much more time on Towa than I feel that I needed to. She's the most broken figure in the game to this day, I think. Like, even with the countermeasure implemented in DLC 13, just build a team around that. It doesn't matter. It's actually so unfair. And then we have Few, who I would say is a very good, I would say he's viable. I wouldn't say he's God tier, but the fact that you can get behind things like Vados and Whis or NZ Goku to get to what's behind them makes him very valuable, in my opinion. And you can even make that case for, like I said earlier, you can make a case for a lot of these figures. Kid Buu. I'm talking in terms of, like, first, no matter what team that they're facing. If you have a team, like my broken deck versus Few, yeah, he's going to get good damage dealt to the Frieza behind the Vados that placed down. It ain't going to do a whole lot, though, because he's still dealing with the damage mitigation from Frieza, Super Saiyan 4 Goku, and Vados, plus Frieza's just going to heal it off anyway if he takes too much damage. With the HP Cure 50L I have on him. Still very solid, though. Same with Super Saiyan 3 Bardock. I'm going to say he's God tier just because look at what he can do as the match progresses. Just keep him on the field. He gets 500 to his own attack, 250 to his defense, and he subtracts all the opponent's speed by 250. It doesn't matter if they're on the field or not. If you're trying to go second and you want a beefy unit that's really going to help you, this is one of them. Very solid figure. I recommend using this version personally. You could even use this one if you felt like it, but I'll take the less attack to build them up as the game goes on. That's just my other preference, though. Hell, you can even use him in off-second decks if you want to, but that kind of defeats the purpose of his trigger square. Anyway, Kefla, I'm going to say she's viable, but definitely not God tier. I think the Dragon Ball Super Broly, we got the first one, is just so much better. Because no matter what, if he gets hit, he's getting both the attack and the defense benefit. Mind you, I think it's only 500, but he's still getting both. I would consider this Gogeta, sorry, I'm rubbing my eye right now. Either version of the first Blue Gogeta I would say is God tier, and that's because of his trigger square. That is such a handy thing to have. Whether you go first or second, you're either going to deal 20% more damage or take 20% less damage. So whether you're trying to go first or second, that's just such a great thing to have. And his stats are not bad on either version. Then we have the Broly that I was getting into here. So plus 500 to on attack when attacking, and plus 500 to on defense when attacked. That's repeatable. Ideally, you're going to want to keep him safe behind something like NZ Goku. Because if you get hit, it doesn't have a lot of defense to him. But I would still put him above Kefla just because of the fact that you can still stack up defense and you can put him behind things like NZ Goku, Whis, and he already has such a higher attack stat that it pretty much doesn't matter. You can even make up for his lack of defense with character skills. Heck, you can even put on all defense character skills on him. And if you're trying to go second, it's super easy to do with this figure. Because even at 99, he only has a base speed of 650. So I'm going to go ahead and give credit to 18. I would say after what I was able to pull off with her for one of the suggestions I had, I would say she's viable, but definitely not a god tier. And I personally would not bother at all with 371 or 372. Odd, I thought I made more copies of them for myself already. Gonna have to do that. Oh well. That's for future me to do off-screen. Either version of the second UI Goku can be really good. I don't see the point in using them. Although I will say he gets a very good buff to both his attack and defense and speed, especially if your opponent has 50% ultimate attack gauge or higher, and you can easily mitigate them with character skills or figures or what have you. You can make a case for him being a god tier. I don't see it, because it takes a while to get him going anyway. And then I would say, let's see, where is it? This version of the second Blue Evolution... No, wait, he's actually the first Blue Evolution figure we got. Anyway, I know he's got 3 different versions, both with 2 variations. I would say if you're going to use this figure, just use the 386 variant and dupe him entirely into speed. He's going to one-shot anything and everything, even your opponent's master, if you get lucky, mind you, and you get a counterattack. But I wouldn't rely on that. I think there are better options, and more safe options for that matter. But I'm going to say, just because of this, that this one's god tier. This one specifically, dupe him entirely into speed. And then if you're going to use either version of this Blue Evolution figure, use this one. And I'm personally going to say that he's god tier just because look at his base stats. There's nothing horrible about them, and look at what his trigger square does. 500 to his own attack and speed, so you can easily make up for his speed. He has a spot behind Vados. you subtract the opponent's damage dealt to your side until the end of the turn, and then an additional minus 10% the damage dealt by attacked opponents until the end of the next turn. So if you're trying to go first, he's going to be really good. If you're trying to go second, you can use him. In fact, I have had decks in the past where I've used him to go second. That kind of defeats the purpose, though, in my opinion. So, after taking a second closer look at his trigger square, try to use him in first teams, or in speedier teams. Don't bother with the second version of Blue Gogeta. I just think he's absolute trash. No comment on Rubrian. No thank you. And I already know Rock and Robo was going to type something below. Shut up. And then, let's see, Android 21. If you're going to use any version, I would say use 436. This is a very similar stat spread to the first variant of Goku. Around that speed. Around that attack. Close to. Very solid to have. And plus your trigger square is actually really busted, I think. You get 100, you get 500 to your attack and speed each turn. So already she's like the second Blue Evolution Vegeta, and that's repeatable. And that's nuts. Because even if you dupe her entirely into speed, she already has that much speed to start off with. Plus if you're trying to go first, you can easily head on defense to yourself against very common enemy figures like, let's just say Vados. Because Vados is still so very prominent, and Piccolo, of course, and Whis, and Goku. The list goes on in terms of good defense, the defensive units in the front. I haven't really messed around too much with Majub. I could see him being good, very close to God tier. Let me know if you guys use Majub down below. I don't have too much experience with him. Same with the other Majub, although I've seen how high his defense can get. It's ridiculous. Over on Robo's channel, which, by the way, go and watch Rock and Robo for more Hero Colosseum content. He's got a lot of really good vids on there. I think right now he's in the middle of a Nuzlocke thing for a Pokemon game, or a ROM hack. I don't remember which one it is. Then we have the third version of Super Saiyan 4 Goku. And you don't really want to go after him, you want to go after what he EX Limit breaks into, being one of the other versions of the Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. Same thing with the Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta here. And then we have Omega Shenron, who, I would say this one's a lot better than his first iteration. I'm going to go ahead and say he's God tier just because it's not going to matter too much if you decrease your own ultimate attack gauge with the new UR Frieza round. Plus, you can easily make up for that by running him off of his trigger square, or equipping him with specific character skills. You can easily make up for the minus 10% to your own ultimate attack gauge. It sucks that you have to mitigate that with character skills or another figure, but that there's at least a workaround for it. Don't use any of the supervillain UR figures. You are making your master take 20% more damage. Too dangerous, in my opinion. Don't bother. No comment on the either UR Supreme Kai of Time. Just feel like this was overall a wasted update. You can make a case or an argument for the second Super Gohan. I don't see it. Locking your entire team in place, I think, is horrible. I would not recommend it. I want to say it's your entire team. If not, it's definitely, you know, just him. But if I remember correctly, you're locking your entire team in place when using him. Correct me if I'm wrong down below. I don't use him very much to begin with. I personally don't think the Bardock's worth using. Either of these. I mean, yeah, they have good base stats, but what really separates these from others is their trigger squares. They're not really that useful in the grand scheme. And I just think there are better options. Like, take for example this Super Saiyan 3 Bardock. Compare him to the Goku. And compare him also to his first version of Super Saiyan 3, which I think is arguably much better. Plus, he only has trigger squares in the front. And two of those very important trigger squares share squares with Vados, Whis, and a Z Goku, etc. No thank you. Don't use the supervillain mirror deck. I'm sorry, not deck figure. Just don't use either version of him, really. Next up we have Janemba. And I'll say this right now, he's not bad, but... actually, no, wait, what am I saying? I'm really tired from work. Either version of him is God tier. Either one is going to do you just fine, whether you're trying to go first or go second. And he has one of the best trigger squares in the entire game. Easily God tier. They really screwed over Cell, I think, in DLC 12. I wouldn't bother. They gave us a very broken figure in the new UR Frieza. Yeah, either version I would say is God tier. They made UR Final Form Frieza ridiculous. Easily God tier the new Super Gogeta we got in DLC 12. And then the new one we got in DLC 13, I wouldn't say is worth using very much. We'll get to him. This Piccolo, while not terrible, only has a spot in the bottom left, and his trigger square is very gimmicky, and that's my problem with him. And as much as I'm a diehard Blue Evolution Vegeta fanboy, too gimmicky as well, because you are relying on your opponent to have higher attack than him. What's the point when you have already higher attacking, or higher base attack figures that can get even stronger than that? And they start off with higher numbers in general. There's no point in using him, in my opinion. But you can make a case for him, he's still very good. I would say either version of Pycon is really good. If you're going to use either, though, use this one. And put him on there with, actually, no, wait, am I thinking of the other one? I'm thinking of this one with Gogeta. Use this one. Because look at how ridiculously high his attack is. Put him on the field with the, you know, this one. This figure here, and you have a ridiculously overpowered combination on your hands. And wait, I just realized, I'm just noticing here. Did I forget to make another version of him duped entirely in speed? Am I getting my Gogetas mixed up? Hold on a sec. Okay, 5770. Let's go look at Gohan really quick. I'm sorry to be doing this on screen, by the way. Okay, 7350. I thought we had a much faster, EX Limit Broken... Okay, I was thinking of over here. I'm sorry, I jumped the gun on that. Okay, where's he at? That's right, because there is a version before you EX Limit Break him for both, from DLC 12. That was my bad. We're not in the EX Limit Broken figures yet. But, other ones that you could argue to be God tier, you could definitely put this one up there, and I wouldn't have a problem with that. Just make sure you have more defense added on for his character skills and the healing character skill, because even in his free battle, he has a figure just like that, and he's ridiculous. He puts in really good work. Both versions of Jiren, easily God tier. I'm not going to say it again. Because yes, while he shares a trigger square with Vados, he has another one in the upper middle. And he's arguably the strongest figure in the entire game. Because look at his trigger square. I'm surprised they made a figure this absolutely broken. So he gets 500 to his own attack. Not only is that repeatable, but that effect gets increased by 150 each turn. And then when you attack an opponent, you get 5% to your ultimate attack damage. And you get 1.2 times to own attack when attacked. This figure is utterly broken. Highly recommend using him. I would say if you're going to use either, use this version. Dupe him entirely into attack, put him on the field with either Vados and Whis, or Vados and a Z Goku. Put on defensive and healing skills on all of them. Your team's not going anywhere. And your enemy's just going to flail about trying to take your whole team down, while Jiren just continues to get stronger and has basically no damage dealt to him. In fact, I did a showcase of him a little while back, where I had attack up second 2 on him, defense up second 2, and then I also had the FHP 50 cure on him. It was either that or I had ADM up second and defense up because he was already getting ridiculous amounts of attack added onto him. It was probably the ADM up, I'm sorry, the ADM up second, come to think of it now. I'll have to go back and watch it, it's been a while. The new Khalifa figure, either version I would say is God tier. Very good stats, very good trigger squares. Bottom left and upper middle, like Goku. In fact, you could even put it on the field with Goku if you felt like. You'd get a huge attack buff to your whole team then. I would say that both versions of Kale, while not bad, they're definitely viable, and like I've been saying throughout this video, you can make a case for a lot of these figures. I personally don't think Kale's one of them. Base Vegeta is actually really solid overall. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and say he's, wait, hold on. Yeah, you know what, I got no issues with him other than maybe more trigger squares, but other than that, pretty much God tier. And I'm going to go ahead and say this right now for the new York Broly we got, and say that he's God tier too, because you get a guaranteed counterattack with him. And either version has really high and very solid attack stats overall. You can try to go first with this one, or you can try to go second with this one. I think you're going to get a lot more out of it though if you try to go first with either of them. Just because 2860, pretty high to have on speed. No comment on the Tapion. I don't like a figure that takes health away from yourself or your allies. I'm not going to touch it. No, thank you. And this is the figure I was referring to that pretty much screws over Toa. If I'm correct on that. Let me read over the trigger square here. So let's see. Plus 5 urge to own attack repeatable. And when you attack an opponent, that opponent cannot use a character skill until the end of the next turn. If an ally cannot switch places due to an opponent's skill, cancel that skill. Okay, never mind. I misremembered. So, he doesn't completely screw over Toa. He actually completely screws over figures like Bikini 18, the SR Frieza, where it looks like he's doing a karate chop. I think it's the attack where I think it was Cycle Death Bomb. It's that one. But any figure that prevents you from switching places pretty much mitigates that. And he has really good stats overall. Very decent trigger squares. Freaking 3 of them. You could put him on the field with the first view, and you'd have coverage across the entire board. That to me is nuts. And then you can just slot him whenever you feel like. And then we have a downgrade from the first view. Very selfish trigger squares, you can see. I wouldn't risk using it. And he only has 2 trigger squares on the upper left and the upper right. Both very important spots for, again, NSC Goku, Vados, Whis, etc., etc. Did I even go over NSC Goku previously? I want to say I did, but now I'm not so sure. Alright, well, just in case, both NSC Goku figure, God tier. Both of them are very solid. Doesn't matter if you're trying to go first or second. Next we are getting into... Oh wait, no, we're still on these. Hold on. I'm gonna go ahead and say that this version of the Yorzumasu, Fusamasu, God tier. Both of them. Do not bother EX-Limit breaking either of them, as that is a downgrade in my opinion. And as you can tell by the amount of Super Saiyan 4 Gojitas I have, yes, all 4 variants of them are freaking God tier. The only issue is trying to 10 out of 10 them all. And I advise doing so with either version of the 3rd Super Saiyan 4 Goku or Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta before EX-Limit breaking them, because then you're facing a nightmare of grinding for all of these chips right here. Where are they? These are the chips you're going to have to grind for. I'm sorry, no, it looks like just... Hold on, it looks like chips A... Let's see... Wasn't there another one? I feel like there was another one. Okay, no, it was just this one, my bad. So you're going to have to keep grinding for all of these to keep EX-Limit breaking all 4 of those. And then... like multiplying them, duping them into each other, you're going to need 11 at least before you EX Limit break either, because the additional 10 act as the dupes for that figure. And make sure you're putting them in the figure you're trying to get to the 99, otherwise you're making a ton more work for yourself. But that out of the way, we have quite possibly the most broken L1 unit in the game, being Vegeta. I'm going to say both versions of him are amazing. Both are god tier. In my opinion, this is the best L1 unit in the game. And again, you can make a case for Janemba just because he can survive on 1 HP. In fact, if it comes down to an ult standoff, and it's them two versus each other, Janemba's probably going to win. Like, basically, no doubt. And he's going to get stronger on top of it. But definitely a top contender for best L1 unit in the game. Then we have a very viable unit in the EX Limit broken of the first form Frieza we had. When Hero Colosseum first came out. Solid. I wouldn't say he's god tier. And that mentality is pretty much going to go for the rest of the EX Limit broken list. The figures that I went over that I consider god tier, just use them. And pretty much do not bother with the rest. Now, other figures that I would consider viable, if you have these SRs laying around, let me open this up really quick. It's going to take me a while to find Frost. There we go. This SR version of Frost isn't bad, but again, you can only 9 out of 9 him, and he caps to level 60. He's a viable SR unit. Let's see, there was also Kaba. There we go. This SR version of Kaba. Probably going to want to use this version, because he's a lot quicker, has more attack. Yes, he has less HP, and yes, he only has spots in the upper middle and the upper left, but you can easily build around that with other figures to protect him. Another really good SR unit to look at is Ultimate Form Adult Gohan. I'm trying to find him. Hold on. Let's see, where is he? There we go. And I would say use this version if you have to. He has spots in the back left and bottom right, and you can put him behind things like NSC Goku, Whis, Vados, etc. Of course, you can still only 9 out of 9 him, and put him at level 60. But he's definitely viable, so I would consider him. And the other SR, I would say that's viable, still really good. I've definitely had some really good results with him. Where is he? There we go, this SR Cooler. Yeah, this version specifically, just because he gets a lot of attack and a lot of HP on top of, you know, not just a whole bunch of HP and very laughable attack. I wouldn't use this one. Like I said, though, you can make a case for either. It all comes down to a matter of preference. On a lot of these figures, the ones that I consider to be god tier, though, in my opinion, just use those, you're fine. And best of luck farming, and best of luck getting all the TP medals that you need, because I have a feeling we're going to need a lot more come next DLC. But until then, I'll see you guys later with some more free battles. I will be doing some slot suggestions, and just other suggestions in general. I'll be starting off with the 6-star free battles very soon here. I thank y'all for watching. I'm tired. I'm gonna go to sleep now. Peace.